access to abortion, if everybody had, you know, wonderful, supportive lives and families, then organizations like Planned Parenthood, we'd love to, you know, sort of source ourselves right out of business. Same with Emily's List. If we had, you know, equal representation, women represented, women in government looked like women in the general population, we'd be fine. And, you know, I wouldn't have a job, but until that happens, I think I have some job security.
What are some of your most, that you consider your most important victories within the last 2 years, especially in the 2018 election?
Sure. So the 2018 election, we saw, so for my role with Emily's List, I'm the state and local regional director for state and local campaigns in my region includes all of New England, plus New York, New Jersey, and Delaware. And in 2018, when I took this job, I had 3 red legislative bodies. So I had the New York Senate was controlled by Republicans. I guess 4. The New Hampshire House and Senate was controlled by Republicans, and the Maine Senate was controlled by Republicans. And with a huge investment, it was, you know, a big investment by us, particularly in Maine. We spent a lot of money in Maine. At the legislative level, and you know, and a lot of partner organizations. I have no red legislative bodies in my region at all, which is huge. And now it's a matter of holding those legislative bodies. So holding the Maine State Senate, the Maine State House, holding the New Hampshire Senate and State House, and then holding those legislative bodies in New York, because we know we're going into 2020, which is a huge redistricting year, and that's going to determine the legislative districts for the next 10 years. And this is a big deal. So I think that was my most important legislative battles and victories. And then, you know, I had some really exciting wins in Maine, you know, particularly with Linda Sanborn, which was, I think that's in the county that you're in, right? In Scarborough County.
Yes.
Are you having? It looks like maybe somebody's having a little bit of trouble. So I'm happy to just keep talking as long as you need me until everybody else can join. So, you know, and we elected some really historic candidates, and we worked for some historic candidates. So in Maine, you know, somebody that I was really excited to see elected again was Linda Sanborn, even though she's not running again. We had Heather Sanborn, who was sort of a groundbreaking, you know, state senator in Portland. That was super exciting. And we came close with a number of really exciting women in Maine. In New Hampshire, we elected our first person of color to ever serve in the New Hampshire State Senate. Her name was Melanie LeVake, and she's there. She's changing voter laws. She's fighting for constitutional right to vote for everybody here in New Hampshire. So like Emily's List makes a difference. We really invest in our women candidates. We make sure that they have the infrastructure, the fundraising skills. I know that's a little different in a state like Maine, where normally you run with clean election funds, which is, you know, a really great way to run elections, but it's not, you know, the traditional way that most states do it. So with Emily's List, we really dig in with the candidates. We make sure that they're surrounded by a good team. We make sure that the fundraising apparatus is strong. We make sure that they have access to professionalized supports that they're going to need to run their campaign. We work in Maine, especially we work with the caucuses, the state Senate caucus and the state House caucus, to make sure that the candidates have access to training, because there are a lot of candidates and there's not a lot of staff. So it helps everybody if we can, you know, tag team some of that. And then for Emily's List, we get involved in primaries. We, you know, will work with women candidates. You all have a big deal Senate race going on.
Yes.
And Emily's List, which is not, I mean, that's not my race. That's, I have a colleague in DC who runs the federal races for Emily's List, and I deal with everybody below governor. So I deal with the state Senate candidates, the state rep candidates. We endorsed a lot of DA candidates last time. Those were really interesting and fun races to work on.
Well, that's terrific. As you know, we have a very big U.S. Senate Democratic primary here. I think everybody's aware of that and been paying attention. And I hope that we have some results coming in. Keep in mind, of course, this is a ranked choice vote. And so the results will not be available for several days. And this is a trade-off, of course. One thing about ranked choice voting that people are telling me that they really like is the fact that they feel that they're not wasting their vote when they go to vote for somebody. And I think that's terrific that we have that system in place.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely marvelous. Do you have any future plans to run yourself?
I mean, it's one of those things, I love my service on the select board here. It's very local politics. And I really believe that I'm making a difference, especially during COVID.
Yes.
During this COVID crisis. And I have to decide whether or not I'm going to run for a second term. Our terms are 3 years. And my term is coming up. And it's one of those things, like I used to say when I was working on campaigns, I used to say I would never, not in a million years, run for office myself. And here I am. I'm really loving it, but I don't know. I certainly admire people who make this a lifetime of service. It is a lot of hard work, and I'm so grateful that there are women and a lot of really good men too, who put their money where their mouth is and run and serve their communities.
Well, Molly, I want to thank you very much for dropping in, spending a few minutes with us. It's great to hear from you, and please keep up the good work wherever you are, and hopefully our paths will cross at some point in the campaign that's coming up.
Well, I'm so glad that you made time and space for me, and thank you so much. I love this idea. I am tuning in all night to these results, and so I hope to see you in person when it's safe to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now. All right, that was Molly Cowan from Emily's List. And we're going to hear from somebody else who's also been very active in promoting women in politics and women in leadership positions in politics. But before I introduce her, I would like to put in a plug for the Cumberland County Democrats. We cannot really run a campaign unless we have funds to run the campaign with. So this is a moment to take a moment to reach into your wallet. I know it sounds like a cliche, but reach into your wallet, pull out your credit card, donate on the donate button that you see, donate on the link, and help us build a campaign that we can take to all the county and turn Cumberland County bluer, certainly bluer than it is now. And it's actually in pretty good shape, but we're not satisfied. We want to turn the county blue. All right. We're going to now hear from a woman who is very active in, again, promoting women in politics. She was a former chair of the Portland Democratic City Committee. And I'm going to introduce a video of Jill Barkley Roy. So take it away.
Hi, Cumberland County Democrats. My name is Jill Barkley Roy, and I live with my wife here in South Portland. I'm so excited to vote every single year. The first election I was able to vote in was the time Al Gore ran for president. I was a freshman in college, and that was the first time I was able to vote. But the most memorable time recently that I was allowed to vote was actually shortly after my wife and I moved here to South Portland. And literally almost a week later, there was a special election for an at-large city council seat. And we got to go to the poll and register in person because it's Maine and we have great voting laws, and vote for my emerged sister, Heidi DeBlock, who became the first Somali woman elected to the South Portland City Council. I love voting because I love getting people elected, especially Democrats, especially women, and especially women of color. And I'm just so thrilled that DECA is here to represent us in our community because I really believe that representation matters. So I hope that everyone voted just recently in this general election, or in this primary election, and I hope everyone turns out for the general, even if we're turning out again by mail, because this year is far too important to sit out.
All right, thank you. I'm Jill Barclay Roy. We're going to now hear from someone live who will be tuning in. Maury Hill, who is the head of the Lake Region Democrats. And the Lake Region Democrats are an organization that encompasses a lot of the towns in the western part of Cumberland County, around Raymond, Sebago, Bridgeton, Harrison. She's been very active in promoting the Lake Region Democrats. And without further ado, here's Maury. Maury, there are you. There you are. And we got some sound here. Okay. Hang on just 1 minute. All right. We're having a little sound technical snafu. It happens. This is what happens when everybody wants to get on Zoom at the same time. I'm quite sure you've all experienced your problems with your internet service from our favorite internet provider, who shall remain nameless, so I don't get into trouble. But we are going to be hearing from her very soon, and we will hear from her. And this also happens to people on National Public Radio. I listen to them all the time. What happens? They lose the sound. Just a moment while we just check here. Maureen. All right, we will come back. We'll get back to you, Maury. And Joe McMahon, who's the town chair of Sebago. Joe, tell us what was the voting like out there in Sebago today?
Well, I voted myself personally, shall we say, absentee. So I think like a lot of people, I really didn't want to go to the, I'll call it directly go to the polls. So I would imagine they had a decent turnout, but they had quite a few absentee ballots, much more than normal. So that was basically what was going on today. And the important, basically there was an election for 2 new selectmen and basically the school budget. So it was sort of an important day to get everything done. But for example, we had an in-person town meeting, and only about, well, something like 30 people showed up.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a certain fear, I think, of it going to places where, shall we say, you may end up in a position of getting exposed. So other than that, it's just sort of a quiet day with, they haven't posted any results yet, obviously.
What you mentioned the school budget. what are some of the issues involved in the budget? For example, we always have a controversy here when we have a school budget in Portland. And I know they have a controversy in Scarborough about it. But what are the big issues involving the school budget this year?
Well, we didn't have much of a discussion. Basically, the school budget was posted on the school website. We have our own elementary school. So it was just the budget for the elementary school. And let's say that with what's going on, what we had to use for a budget is basically what you'd call a normal expectation for a normal school year, which is something we don't appear to be coming into. So I know there's going to be issues with additional janitorial staff, and we have a small school with, well, if you can fit 15 or 16 kids into a room, that's sort of unusual. But the bottom line with the what we have coming up ahead is going to be very difficult to find. I'll call it the appropriate spacing for the coming school year, because we don't have any more room.
Joe, what are some of the issues out your way that people are concerned about in terms of state government? What do they feel they need? What do they feel is lacking? What do they want to see coming from Augusta?
Well, I think pretty much everybody right at the moment is primarily focused on the pandemic issues. Okay, because I'm obviously not a young person.
No.
And a very large portion of our constituency here are in the above 50 category. And I think the biggest thing is that we've been very lucky because we've had no sign of what you call community transmission. So the only people we had in town that they weren't identified by persons, but we had 2 or 3 people who had, as far as I know, they had the virus and recovered, but they had come up from Florida. So we've done pretty well with that.
Good. Great. Well, great. Yeah, Joe, thank you very much. I am now informed that we've got our technical glitch ironed out, and I want to turn it over to Maury Hill. Thank you, Joe. Maury.
Can you hear me now?
Ah, yes. You know those commercials with the cell phone? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? All right, great. We can hear her.
All right.
Go ahead, Maury. I've talked enough tonight. Go ahead. We want to hear from you.
Well, I just realized that I had signed in from Safari and not Chrome, and that's why I didn't get that message to check my audio. So anyway, here I am. I just wanted to thank Joe for filling us in on Sebago, which is one of our Lake Region towns. I'm also reporting from Standish. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Lake Region Dems very quickly, and just remind people that we had our first office out here in Wyndham Raymond in 2012 for the Obama campaign. And we've had an office every 2 years since then. Now we're going to have an office in Raymond again, and feeling very fortunate about that. We are working with the organizers from the coordinated campaign and hope to be open by August 1st.
Great.
And I have to say that we have a renter, or somebody who is leasing the office to us, who actually leased it in 2016. So we're feeling very positive about that, and also very welcome to be back in that space, which is actually quite ideal for us. We obviously will not be having many people in there. There are very clear guidelines for opening an office, and I know that Rachel had shared those with me originally. We will follow those guidelines, and because many of our volunteers who have worked with us in the past are my age or slightly younger or slightly older, they'll be very cautious about coming in because of COVID. But the office itself will allow approximately 8 people to be there with good physical distancing and probably masks as well. I hope is my volume too loud for you?
Oh, you're fine. You're coming
Okay.
loud and clear.
Okay. But what we anticipate is many, many phone calls, as we all know, unfortunately. But we will also have a number of signs that will be available from that office. The biggest thing is that that office is along the 302 corridor and will help Casco and Naples and Bridgeton and all of the towns, Wyndham, Standish. It'll be accessible for many people to come and get materials if they need them, particularly signs. And I know signs don't vote, but we have a big, big rural area to cover. And with so many of the signs out for the opposing party, it will be important to have those signs as well. And speaking of signs, we're also considering making some of our own. The other thing I did want to say is that we have a Facebook page and website. It's all up and interactive. And we have a very talented woman who is actually posting to our Facebook page. So it's something that she's doing very effectively. And I appreciate her help immensely in terms of doing that. Paul Prudian is our vice chair out here, and he has been active in terms of looking at that office and negotiating the contract as well, and making sure the space in the office will be appropriate for everybody. The other thing is that I'm going to really work hard on becoming much more comfortable with Zoom, and hopefully we'll be able to feature our candidates every week to be able to invite people via our mailing list or MailChimp list, as well as the Cumberland County Dems MailChimp list, to have people listen in and on interviews with our candidates. I'm probably being redundant for what other people have already said, but the chairs of the other town committees are also very important in terms of the Lake Region Dems, because they know their local resources.
When do you anticipate opening the office?
August 1st.
August 1st.
Yes.
Right. So
And we have our own, we have a lot of our own, we have a lot of office supplies from prior campaigns. And we also have office furniture and a good printer, scanner, copier, etc. So we will be, reinstalling that, and we'll have good Wi-Fi as well in that office.
right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Maury. Thank you. And we'll be seeing you. I'll be out there, of course, to the office when it opens up. Not on August 1st, but shortly after it opens.
Well, the other thing
they
is,
take a little bit of vacation right before I start campaigning. But
that's good. I will tell you that in terms of signage on 302, we're going to have that covered. And the final thing I would say, for the candidates out there, I think it's going to really help them to have us be visible with a temporary sign at the roadside on 302, as well as a big sign on the office building itself. So anyway, that's where we are.
great. Thank you, Maury. Thank you, Maury Hill.
Thank
And
you.
now we're going to hear from Brian Tucker in Casco. Brian, what was the turnout like today in Casco?
Well, I actually went over to the polls a couple of times today. I voted by absentee ballot myself, but my wife hadn't voted absentee, and so I accompanied her to the polling place, and there were maybe just a couple of people kind of in and out of there. They had everything set up in a COVID preparedness situation. They had the poll workers behind glass or plexiglass, and they had 6 foot apart signage up there everywhere. Masks were worn by people, and there was some nice hand sanitizing solution. We both Melody managed to vote. Melody is my wife.
Yes.
And like I said, I had voted by absentee. Unfortunately, in the package that they sent me, they did not include the school budget vote. That came later by several weeks, and I didn't get a chance to fill that out and send it in. So while I was there, I spoke with one of the poll workers, and she said she would be happy to, that I couldn't do it at that time, but that I could go home if I still had it, fill it out, and bring it back to the polls, which I did later in the day. So I was able to vote up the local school budget here in the Lake region. And it was even the second time that I went by later in the afternoon, it was not especially busy. There were still maybe just a couple of people in and out. And so I did speak briefly with our town clerk, and she informed me that it had been very busy as far as the absentee ballots, that they had, I think she said, 400 requests for absentee ballots, and that the actual people showing up to vote, it was a pretty light turnout, as it were.
Well, thank you, Brad. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more, but before I continue, again, I want to mention that this is a fundraiser for the Cumberland County Democratic Committee. So please go to the donate button, go to the link that you will see so that you will be able to send us a donation so that we can help staff offices and run the campaign. It's coming up. It's going to be a very different kind of campaign, obviously, because we can't go door to door the way we used to because of the pandemic. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to campaign. It's going to mean phone calls. It's going to be texting. We're going to campaign, and that's what's really important. Great. Oh, I've just been informed that we are going to be joined by Simon Thompson, who is the chair of the Portland Democratic City Committee. He will be joining us very soon. And let me just mention that I know he's not on yet, but he'll be joining us soon. I was working at the polls today in Portland, and I was working at the what would have been the exposition building, which is being used to house homeless people who have been infected with the virus, and it was a safe place to keep them. I should say, people from the shelter, we used the ice arena, the William Trobe Ice Arena, was a stand-in for the exposition, and it was a steady turnout. It was a lot of people came at the very beginning when the polls opened, but and then it trickled off for a while. And as I mentioned earlier, and those of you who hadn't heard, the City of Portland clerk had 17,000 absentee ballot requests, and I believe 14,000 of them were returned. At least that was according to the conversations I had this morning at the polls. Just to mention that before Brian goes away, he is the secretary of the Cumberland County Democratic Committee. So without him, we wouldn't know what we said. That was a bad joke. All right, Brian, anything else you'd like to add about what was going on in Casco, or some of the issues that people are concerned about in Casco?
Well, I can say from the absentee ballot and what went on that we had the races that we know about, and we did the write-in. I think I have heard some people express a little bit of concern about the write-in, and it should be interesting to see how that works out.
Nice. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Are we ready for Simon Thompson? Are we? All right. He will. I promise you, he will make an appearance. But in the meantime, we have Larry Flaherty, who is the chair of the town committee in Bridgeton. So, Larry, welcome to our Zoom-A-Thon. Thank you for showing. You got a nice palm tree back there. I thought you were in Bridgeton. What is this?
This is the way Bridgeton actually looks, but we keep it a secret.
That's great. Larry, tell me, what was it? What was the turnout like today in Bridgeton, and what are some of the issues in Bridgeton that people are really concerned about?
Well, I have no idea what the turnout was since I wasn't at the town office at the polls. My wife and I both voted absentee. We sent our papers in early. Want to make sure they got counted, make sure they got in. Plus, they were pretty complex and long and drawn out forms, which was also something we had to make sure that we took our time and did. And it was really good. And when I was at the town offices a couple of times registering my vote and stuff like that, there was people there constantly getting those ballots, picking them up there. So I think that a lot of people in Bridgeton did vote that way. And I think it's a great way of doing it. Maybe we can get in the habit of doing that in the future and get more people out to vote.
Mm.
And what people were really concerned about here, they're concerned about everything about COVID-19. That's really something that has people's interest, and they want to make sure that we have what is necessary to handle that. We have the rules in place and make sure that everybody is following those rules.
What about people wearing masks? A number of people have been reporting to me that they were at polls and they noticed a lot of people weren't wearing masks. How is it what did you find out about Bridgeton? Any reports about?
Well, actually, when I've been to events, small events, but with practicing social distance, everyone there has worn masks.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't wear it, I feel it's my right to remind people they should wear a mask or they should leave. But we haven't had that. It hasn't been necessary to do. The majority of people are wearing masks.
Mm.
I do notice a lot of people in Bridgeton recently because it's kind of opened up and people are showing up from out of state. A lot of New York and Massachusetts license plates, and a lot of them aren't wearing masks.
Mm.
I think they feel safe in Bridgeton because it is kind of remote, and we haven't had that many real cases in Bridgeton. But again, we want to keep it that way. So we want to make sure people do follow those safety procedures.
Good. Well, that's good. But outside of no, COVID-19 is on everybody's mind. You can't help but be on everybody's mind. It's not only in the front page news every day, but we're getting the reports of the cases that come in, and also the tragic loss of life as a result. But what are some of the other things that people in Bridgeton are concerned about? The reason I ask, of course, being from Portland, people tend to think that those of us in Portland are too Portland-centric, and we don't care about the rest of the county. So what are some of the things that you think people in Portland, in the Portland area, need to know about what's on the minds of people in Bridgeton?
Well, a lot of retirees in Bridgeton. It's not a lot of young people here. So for that reason, the interests are things like healthcare, Social Security. Those things are really important to the folks in Bridgeton, and to maintain them. They're also, and most of the people that I talk to are Democrats. And they're, of course, really concerned with the fact that we have an out of control federal government. And we need to win this upcoming election. And we're very fortunate that we have a Democrat as our Congresswoman, Chellie Pingree. And we also have a couple of, with Angus King. He's not a Democrat, he's independent, but he should be a Democrat. He votes all the right way. So I really feel comfortable with him there. And now the next thing we have to do is make sure whoever wins our nomination tonight,
Mhm.
that person goes on and takes the senator position. And we end, what's her face's? I'm sorry. Susan Collins.
Susan Collins, yes.
Yeah, that has changed. That's something that's also I've heard a lot of.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that you're active, by the way, in that area, and it's good to touch base with people throughout the county. I think that's one of the important things that we have to do, especially those of us who live in Portland, have to realize that yes, once you cross the Presumpscot River, there's other people out there.
There are people here.
Yeah.
One more thing I'd like to mention is the fact
Sure.
that we've spent a lot of time trying to figure out how we would actually work the campaigning. How would we get the word out to our constituents out here? And what we've determined a number of things. My wife and I, during the time that they were separating children from their parents down at the border, we started holding signs on the corner of the main street and where there's traffic light is in Bridgeton. And so we went there and we put those signs up. We got a lot of reaction. More recently, we've been doing that at the Black Lives Matter thing. We even had a couple of different groups holding signs down there supporting the right way to do things. And that's been important. And so we're planning on continuing that when it comes to vote time. And also we will be, as we did last year, we'll set up a table at the farmers market.
Good.
And we'll make sure we get people to register to vote.
Good.
And it's, we're looking for ways like that and letters and everything, since we can't go door to door.
Well, Larry, thank you very much for the report. And I will be seeing you in the fall. I know we're not going to have a Cumberland County Fair booth because the fair's been canceled, but I will be out to the office, and I'm quite sure. I think you left a hat once that I was able to return to you.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Yes, so I will definitely be out to help out. Thank you very much for your comments tonight for our fundraiser. Thank you.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, I have some interesting news to report to everybody. There were 203. I had to read that right. 203,000 absentee ballots issued as of yesterday afternoon, higher than the 2018 election. Again, 203,000 absentee ballots. That's statewide. And that, I think, speaks to not only voter participation, but the fact that people will make it to the polls one way or other. And if I can't get there because of the pandemic, I'm going to get that ballot mailed in. And I think it's really important that we protect the right to be able to vote by mail, and we protect the United States Postal Service, which has been threatened by this current administration. And the U.S. Postal Service does a really good job. Let's not forget that. I've just been told that we have Sheila Rollins, and from, all right, she's with us. She's a chair, Harrison, Maine. And let me see what we're doing here because it's important. We're still working on that. All right. We're going to be hearing from Sheila Rollins soon. Just a note to mention that this is our first Zoom-A-Thon, and this is an experiment, and this is something we've never tried before. So I think it's important to realize that we're hoping that what comes out of this is that you go to the donate button. Yes. Sheila, is that you? Hello? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you a little bit. How are you?
Yeah, it's not a good. Good. I can't hear you very well. Sorry about that.
All
So I'm
right.
starting the video. So if you can hear me, I can tell you what's going on in
Yes,
Harrison.
yes, please. Go ahead, Sheila. Hello? All right, well, I think we're running into some more technical problems here. Oh, if there's nothing to say that she can't come back a little bit later once we iron this out, all right? So we do want to hear from Sheila Rollins, definitely. We're going to have some more people coming up in just a moment, all right? Again, I know I sound like a broken record, but please go to the donate button. And please go to the link to donate to the Cumberland County Democratic Committee. This is our only fundraiser for the year. We planned on having a fundraiser back in April. All the plans were made, all the arrangements were made, and unfortunately, the pandemic hit and we had to postpone it. And we kept having to postpone it. So we are having a fundraiser tonight because it's an important election, it's primary. And also for those of you who are interested in history, today is also Bastille Day. Well, we have a very special guest coming up, and that is Garrett Stewart. Garrett is the head of the local chapter of the A. Philip Randolph Institute here in Maine. He's also a union activist at Bath Iron Works in Local 6. And so now I'd like to introduce Garrett. Garrett, take it away. Yeah, we have to unmute him.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you now.
How you doing, man?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm great. Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here. I think it's really important. We hear from you. Garrett, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the A. Philip Randolph Institute. I'm not sure a lot of the people who are tuning into this Zoom-A-Thon know much about it. So could you tell us a little bit about A. Philip Randolph, who he was, and the work of the A. Philip Randolph Institute, and what your local chapter has been doing?
Okay. Well, first, thank you for having me. A. Philip Randolph, he was a civil rights icon, an American labor unionist, socialist politician, and in 1925, he led the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters to the first union contract. African-American majority. So that was huge back then. Cynthia Finney one day called me and she asked me if I wanted to start a chapter in Maine. So Cynthia and I met at the Lewiston IBEW local 567 in Lewiston. It was just her and I, and we just knew that we wanted to organize, and we knew that we had to get people involved. So we started calling people. We started having meetings, and then I had hip surgery, so we had to bring the meetings to my house for about 4 months. And when we started, it was just basically Cynthia and I. And then we started getting more people, and then my house got too small, so then we had to move to American Roots. Ben Waxman was fortunate enough to let us use his space. You was there, Harlan, remember? When we had...
Well, one thing I know about American Roots, which I think is rather unique, Dory Waxman, of course, was one of the founders as well. But American Roots is unique in that it's the only company that I'm aware of that actually invited a union in to organize its employees.
You're correct.
Right. American Roots is a union shop, and it is a union shop, and it's also a place where new Americans are trained in the art of making clothing. So it's a wonderful place, and I highly recommend it. And so yeah,
absolutely. You know, they were very kind to us. before this COVID virus started, and we have all our meetings there.
Mhm.
So we organized a race and labor seminar in Portland. It was supposed to be for April 6th of this year, but it got canceled. And it was basically standing room only. Our goal was first to have 60 people. It went from 60 to 90, and then we packed it, and we had a waiting list of 25 people. So this is really moving really fast, and there's a lot of excitement.
Good.
And also, I want to add that we just finished our bylaws. That took a while, and we should be electing officers probably within a matter of months.
Great. That's terrific. How many people you have been attracting? You mentioned there was standing room at one point. So how many people that are turning out to come to these meetings?
We're averaging probably between 15 and 20 people.
That's actually pretty good. I was also wanted to ask you a little bit about what's happening over at BIW, because I know you were involved with Local 6 and work at the shipyard. The work has been out for a little over 3 weeks now.
Yeah, 3 weeks yesterday.
What's the update in terms of contract negotiations? I know they've broken down, they're on strike, but what's the update? Anything going to be, does it look like anything is going to be resolved, or are we in for a very long strike?
It's hard to say. I'm not quite sure. What I do know is that they're not negotiating right now.
Yeah.
So there's no word on when they're going to start, as far as I know. So I'm just not quite sure where it is right now. We're out on strike, and I'm not sure. I mean, I can't tell you. I truly can't tell you.
Is there going to be any local community support for the union? I know there was a labor caravan that went up to BIW last week. Is there anything else being planned? Did you know of?
Yeah, we're I think it's next Friday. We're planning to organize to get a lot of the labor councils to come out, Western Maine, Eastern Maine, Southern Maine, Portland Workers Center. So we're trying to work to reach out to the local labor council to come up and support us.
Good.
I think it's next Friday.
Next Friday, good. If anyone's interested in getting more information, certainly I would be willing to have you contact me. My email's hbaker2 at maine.rr.com. And if you want more information, please feel free to let me know. By the way, I neglected to mention when at the start, I'm one of the vice chairs of the Cumberland County Democratic Committee. So, and labor is a very important part of the Democratic Party coalition, and I don't think we should forget that for one moment. We're having some other people coming up, and
hey, Harlan, could I say one more thing?
Sure. No, go ahead. Keep talking.
We have our meetings every third Wednesday of every month. So if anybody would like to Zoom in, Harlan has my information. Facebook me, and I can send you the Zoom information. We'd love to have anybody who wants to join in.
All right. Thank you very much, Garrett. And I'm quite sure we'll be seeing you also in the next few weeks as well.
All right, brother.
Great. Thank you. We're going to have some other things here. Hang on here. Oh, before you go, very important. Want to ask about that button you're wearing. Oh, we lost you. All right. Oh, yes, that button you're wearing. What is that button? Gotta unmute. Looks like Southern Maine. All right.
Oh, no.
The button?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. No, it's my International Association of Machinists button. My union button.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very
brother.
much. All right. We're getting a little update here. What's
How'd I do?
What are we having next here? We have, I mean, I have a list. I know who's having next, but we have a video coming up here. We have Pius Ali. Yes, all right. So we have a video coming up from Pius Ali. Pius Ali, okay, he's very active in the Democratic Party, but he was also the first Muslim, African Muslim, new American to be elected to office in the state of Maine. He is an elected member of the Portland City Council, and now he's been very active in Democratic Party campaigns. He's been active in civil rights and Black Lives Matter. And I want to now introduce the video of Pius Ali.
Beth. My name is Pius Ali and I'm Portland City Councilor. Maine is not my home by birth, but it is my choosing home. Maine is more than just a beautiful place to live. More than anything, Maine is its people. People who are kind, friendly, open-minded, and open-hearted. Maine's people hold strong values of welcoming, accepting, and celebrating each other. And we work to live into those values more and more. Mainers are creative, industrious, curious, and compassionate. And we know that loving our state doesn't mean that there isn't room for improvement. By being civically engaged, we have the power to lift up the place and the people that we love. It starts with voting, but it doesn't stop there. The PTA, the neighborhood association, the school board, the city council, the state legislature. There are countless ways to participate in the decision-making that affect our communities, our families, our youth. If you love Maine, the best way to live into that love is to get engaged, to vote.
And thank you very much. That was Pius Ali, as a Portland City Councilor and active Democrat, active in the Democratic Party, and active as a delegate to various state conventions and campaigns. We are going to be hearing from, let's see, we're going to be hearing from a number of other people throughout the evening. Again, let me remind you, this would be a good time to, again, donate to the Cumberland County Democratic Committee. Is Sheila ready to come back? Can we get her back on? Can we get Sheila back on?
Here, I'm here.
Oh, all right, Sheila.
Like the video wasn't starting. So, but Harlan, you can hear me, right?
Well, I can hear you a little bit. You're breaking up a little bit.
Right. So, I'm doing my best to start the video because it says the host doesn't want me to start my video. So, if you can turn something on, I think I could tell you a little bit what's going on in Harrison.
All right. We're sending you a message. Check.
Yeah, you know what? I think the connection. He's going to send me. I'm going to call in Harlan, and then I'll give you the update via the phone. Okay. And then I'll give you an update when I get the phone, because this is not very good. The connection is not very good.
All right. So
I'll call in if you give me a number.
You're gonna call. All right, she's gonna call in. Bingo. Is she calling in to me, or is she calling in to somebody else? All right.
Email the number. So I'll be in touch in a few minutes, Harlan.
All right. All right, she will get back to us in a few minutes. All right. Good.
Going over to
Well,
Yep.
all right. It's now it's about, for those of you who haven't been watching the clock, it's about 8:37. So the polls have been closed for 37 minutes. Obviously, we're not going to get a lot of updates right now, but we may be getting some early returns from various places. And all right, so we will be getting that in very soon. Later on this evening, we're going to have a short video about Frances Perkins, who was a labor activist, and also she was the first woman to serve as Secretary of Labor in the Roosevelt administration. The Democratic Party had renamed its annual fundraising dinner in honor of her as the Perkins Mitchell Dinner. So we will be seeing a little video about that as well.
Hey, Harlan.
Oh, hello.
Hey, Harlan. I'm joining you for a couple of minutes.
Oh, thank you. Great. Rachel Hendrickson, for those of you who don't know, Rachel Hendrickson is my boss, actually. She is the chair of the Cumberland County Democratic Committee. So, Rachel, why don't you give us a little update about what's happening with Scarborough, whatever you've been able to observe?
Well, I know one of my folks, Marge DeSanctis, is going to be on later. Scarborough had 4,800 absentee ballots, and the folks have been counted all day Saturday and all day yesterday. So we're hoping that we'll get some results tonight, but Marge is going to be on a little later. I just wanted to thank you for the work you're doing. As you said, this is the first time we've done this, and Harlan said, well, he can host. So I think that's great, because I would have panicked partway through this. But you know, we're talking about voting and what we remember from our first votes. And I've got two stories I'd like to present about my early voting. And the first of them is a story about the vote I didn't take. And that is, I was in college in the 60s, and I was getting ready for my very first vote at age 21, and it would have been for JFK. And that is a vote that I didn't get to take. But in 2008, I was working for the National Education Association and coordinating their efforts in North Carolina, Virginia, and Ohio. And most of the coordination that I did involved hiring some very good people and getting out of their way, which is what I usually do with Harlan. He comes up with an idea and I just kind of get out of his way, because I know he's going to carry it forward very well. But on the election night, I was in a convention hall in Ohio waiting to hear the results. And when the Associated Press called Ohio for Obama, the place went absolutely crazy. And one of the things that we knew that night is the world had changed. And unfortunately, the world backslid for 4 years. But we are in a position now to change the world again in November and to move forward with some excitement and change the whole world of DC and actually the whole world. Restore America, restore our hope, make sure that our values are fully expressed. So I'm looking forward to the next vote. And I see we've got a couple of folks waiting, so I'm going to click off for now. And thank you very much, Harlan, for the work you're doing.
And thank you. And we'll return to you later in the evening, Rachel, for a wrap up.
All right.
Great. All right. Here's a man that I've been waiting for. He is Simon Thompson. He's the chair of the Portland Democratic City Committee. Everybody knows Portland is the center of the earth. No, I'm only kidding. But Portland is the largest city in the state, and it's a very important committee to have. And so, Simon, welcome to our Zoom-A-Thon.
Thank you, Harlan. Glad to be joining in here and to have gotten the Zoom info. It's great to join you all, and I've been watching a little bit and glad to be here.
I'm going to ask you about the turnout in Portland. I was only at one polling station, but can you tell me what you were able to observe around the city today in terms of turnout? And also tell me a little bit more about the Portland Democrats. But let's hear
Sure.
what happened.
Happy to. Well, I think that the story about today kind of starts a month and a half ago when the city clerk here released a possible plan to consolidate our 11 polling locations down to 3. And we were able to activate all of our members and recruit over 100 poll workers. And we ended up being able to keep open all 11 polling locations here in Portland, which we felt was super important today, just so that we could ensure safe voting practices and social distancing. But we were just so concerned about setting a bad precedent for November when we can't have a single polling location here in Portland closed. I heard that that turnout was pretty light here in Portland today. I voted absentee, as I think most folks probably did. I heard it was pretty light here. But I do know that the absentee voting numbers have been huge. This came from a Press Herald article, but in Portland alone, by late morning, over 17,600 folks had already voted by absentee. And that the total number of voters absentee and in person in 2018 in Portland was 15,500. So I'm pretty excited to see the total number of folks who turn out here in Portland today. Yeah, and as for the Portland Dems, we're super excited about kind of digging in and doing this work here in Portland. We're particularly going to be focused on Democratic voters here who are lower propensity and haven't turned out in every election, because we want to make sure that we engage every Democrat here this year. So making sure that we're building the programs where we can reach them and turn them out.
Great. How long have you been chair with the committee?
Just since November, but it's we've kind of built up a good group of folks, and we've had 30 or 40 folks at each of our virtual meetings over the last couple of months. We organized virtual forums for all the contested legislative races here in Portland, as well as for the U.S. Senate race. So we're able to get a lot of enthusiasm there, because we have 4 contested primaries for state legislative seats, pardon me, here in Portland today too. So I'm excited to see how those races turn out.
Tell us a little bit about the candidates running in those primaries.
Yeah, there's a lot of good ones. I mean, I've slightly joked about this, but I mean it seriously, and that I wish we had more state legislative seats here in Portland, because we had such good candidates running just across the board here. I live in the West End in Portland, and we had Barb Wood, Michael Flaherty, and Charles Skold all running for this seat, and all 3 of them ran strong campaigns and are all strong progressives. And so I was excited to see any one of the 3 of them. And then we've also got a crowded race for Eric Jorgensen's seat with Ben Grant, Sam Zager, and Lori Davis all running to take over and fill Eric's big shoes that he's leaving behind. And then there's a couple other contested ones as well. But I think it's a win-win scenario coming out tonight, because I'm excited about all the candidates citywide, and all the state legislative candidates have been great about engaging with the Portland Dems and showing up and responding to concerns from voters. So I'm really excited about working with whatever the team looks like here in Portland after tonight.
Good. No, that's great. There's Portland Democrats were the first organization I joined when I joined the Democratic Party in Maine, and I was involved with them back in 1972. That's how far back.
So was I.
You what? 72?
No, 74.
But I don't want to tell too many war stories here, but one of the reasons I am a Democrat is my father was a Democrat who worked for, believe it or not, the Tammany Hall Democrats, and he was a ward healer for the part of the Bronx in New York. And in 1933, he had the responsibility of organizing a car campaign. It was a car caravan for the candidate for mayor, who at that time was Dave O'Brien. You probably never heard of him. He was the mayor who took over for Jimmy Walker when Jimmy Walker had to resign, and they were running against the person they were running against, right, was none other than Fiorello LaGuardia. So that was my
Perfect name.
for that. But
Well, the car caravans came back this year too. I know there have been a few around the state in absence of more in-person tactics.
And so any plans coming up for the election outside of the normal routine? You got a special approach to this coming election in the fall?
Definitely. Well, we had our first phone bank just this past Saturday, which was ballot chase. So calling up folks who have requested an absentee ballot but hadn't submitted it yet. And it was a beautiful Saturday afternoon, but we got 12 folks to sign on and make phone calls. So really excited about organizing, even if we're not able to do too much in person right now. So yeah, we're thinking about a very comprehensive program headed into the fall. The primary thing in my mind is doing relational organizing and really intensive organizing in some of the lower turnout neighborhoods in Portland that have highly densely populated areas, neighborhoods like Parkside and Munjoy Hill and East Bayside, where there's a lot of residents who move regularly, but doing that on the ground work or having neighbors connect with neighbors. We'll be doing phone banks. We'll be doing probably some handwritten letters, but we've got a huge membership, and we're really excited about kind of leveraging all the folks who have been attending our events and meetings over the last couple months to get engaged. And I'd love to do some media projects as well, getting folks to record videos talking about why they're a Portland Democrat and why they're excited to turn out in November. And then I think such a critical component, and we played a role in this for the primary, but it's just going to be voter education, because who knows what our world is going to look like in November. And I think that there will probably be quite a few voters who are voting by absentee or through the mail for the first time in November, and making sure that it's a good experience and that they understand what they're doing. So we've got a lot in store.
Good. Well, I'll be joining you whenever I can.
I appreciate that. Thanks for all of your participation so far too.
Thank you, Simon. Before I introduce our next guest, I just want to give you whatever I have here for very early returns, and these are very early returns, are being reported by the Bangor Daily News in the U.S. Senate primary, Democratic primary. We have 49 votes for Sarah Gideon, 15 for Betsy Sweet, and 2 for Bree Kidman. I told you they were early returns, but I will update you as soon as more votes come in. Next person that I want to introduce is currently he's going to become one of our Democratic National Committee members. He was a legislator from Westbrook, probably best known for the incident of our Governor LePage calling him up and saying some obscenities over the telephone, and Drew Gattine, being the gentleman that he is, never sank to LePage's level. So I'd like to now introduce Drew Gattine. Drew, take it away, our Democratic National Committee man. Go ahead, Drew.
Thank you, Harlan. Thanks for having me on. It's really, again, an exciting night to be a Democrat in Maine. It was great to sit here and listen to Simon talk about all the great things going on in Portland. They've got some really, again, great legislative races going on there. A couple of amazing state legislators who I've served with terming out, which brings opportunity for other people to step forward. Here in Westbrook, we have, again, really promising possibilities for Democrats. We've got, we straddle two Senate districts, and we've got 2 House districts. In 3 of those 4 races, Republicans haven't even put up candidates. So, Westbrook is certainly, in my 15-year, career working with Westbrook politics, certainly gone from sort of a mixed place to a place that's very, very solidly blue, and I'm really excited about that. So it's looking to be a great night for Democrats here in Maine.
That's terrific. Drew, I'm very curious, what attracted you to politics, and especially Democratic politics?
Well, I've been a Democrat my whole life. I always tell people the story. I remember being in 2nd grade in 1968 and, sort of doing the typical mock election that students do. And I grew up in a very, very Republican area of upstate New York. And I remember the teacher saying, I went to Catholic school, and the nun saying, okay, raise your hand if your parents are voting for Richard Nixon. And every kid in the class raised their hand. And
Oh,
then she said, raise your hand if your parents are voting for Hubert Humphrey. And I was the only kid raising my hand. And then I remember the same thing 4 years later with George McGovern. And I learned a lot about politics. I learned a lot about life sitting. I was very close to my grandfather, and I spent a lot of time when I was a kid sitting at my grandfather's kitchen table, just talking with him. And he loved to tell stories. He was a union construction worker, and he wasn't a wicked political guy. But I just remember being a little kid and him looking at me and saying, I'll tell you, I don't really care too much about politics, but I know that as a working person, things are always better for me when the Democrats are in charge. And that's always stuck with me. And that's certainly been my experience. I remember being really disappointed in 1980 because my 18th birthday was 2 weeks after the election, and I wasn't able to vote for president in 1980. And I just remember in 1984, really getting my first opportunity to vote in the primary and to vote for president, and just being so excited. So I've been a lifelong Democrat. I share the values that we have in common as Democrats. And here in Maine, I think that I think we've had opportunity in the past few years to really let those values shine through and really demonstrate, certainly in my years in the legislature, what it is that we're all about. The things that we fight for are the things that Maine people really care about. Obviously now with us having control of the state Senate and of the Blaine House, we've had the opportunity to get a lot of things done. And you probably heard, we're being polled about coming back into session, and I'm really excited to come back into session and finish things off.
yes. Well, that's great. Well, listen, Drew, I wish you the best in your service on the Democratic National Committee. We expect that you're going to come to our committee meetings and give us a report and an update about what's going on, because that's going to be very valuable information and a very valuable connection for us at the local level to have with the National Committee.
Well, as you could probably tell, Harlan, I like to talk. So, going to meetings and
that's
reporting
great.
on things is really what I'm all about. So I'm really looking forward to it, and really appreciate the support that I got from Democrats across the state last month. That was very touching to me, and I really appreciated that.
Great. Thank you very much, Drew. Thank you for zooming in, for lack of a better phrase. Thanks. And I understand now we have, got my fingers crossed, Sheila Rollins. We're going to hear from her. Take it away,
Hi.
Sheila. Hi.
Hi. Finally. Well, right. We're here from Harrison.
Oh, great. I can hear you loud and clear, loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Unfortunate, no picture, but that's okay. I just wanted to share that unlike some of the other small towns, Harrison had some big numbers for a primary. So, they usually get between absentee ballots and voters, they usually get around in the 300s. But today, they had over 350 absentee ballots and probably a little over 200 people that came in to vote. And it was a steady stream all day. And I have to say that people were really, there was a lot on the ballot in Harrison. Selectmen had a lot of stuff on there, and people were not deterred. They were, the conversation with with Melissa St. John, who is the municipal chair, she said, people were really motivated by the climate of things going on with COVID. I heard a lot of people talk about the school and the worry about children and going back to school and how that was handled. There's a real concern about the spreading of the virus in spite of, people talking about, in the smaller towns aren't that concerned. I think there are a lot of people here, a lot of Democrats that really want to see change. And that was the feeling I got talking to people and being outside today. So I thought it was a pretty exciting turnout, to be honest with you, for Harrison.
Now, what got you motivated to become involved in the Democratic Party?
Oh, gosh, that goes back a long ways. I actually ran for political office in 2006, but in Harrison, a House seat. I didn't successfully win. I didn't win, but I learned a lot. This is a good. This is, we now have an independent who won. So Harrison is an interesting town, and it's, there's definitely money here. There's people that come from away and stay, but the political climate, I got interested because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to see things change, and I found another avenue, but I still stay connected with the Democrats, and it's motivating. I mean, what's going on in the world, and in our state, you have to stay focused on that and know that the Democrats are doing the right thing here. That we're doing the right thing. Absolutely. So I got started a long time ago, but anyway, that's my story. And I really and I've been chairing Harrison Democrats here in town for a number of years, and we have a good group. I mean, it'll be bigger, I think, for the election, for the November election, than it was for the primary. I actually think we're going to have some record number Dems turn out because of what's going on in the world.
Great.
Especially here.
Before you go, I just want to give you whatever updates I have here, again, from the Bangor Daily News. This is at least on the referendum. I don't think it's very surprising, but at this point, we have the question 1 on a high-speed internet infrastructure bond issue. It's leading 64.3% yes and 35.7% no. And if that keeps trending, we're going to have some investment in high-speed internet. And I believe that's something that people in Harrison would certainly like to see. And
well, thank you for sharing that, because that's another reason that I didn't get on, right? Reliable high-speed internet. Go ahead.
Precisely. And now the transportation bond issue, highways, bridges, that's also leading 68.9% to 31.1%. But keep in mind, this is very early returns. I'm going to be searching for as many local races as I can, but I suspect, since the polls have only been closed for about an hour, that we really won't be hearing much until 10. And even then, we won't be getting a lot of the final returns. Probably we'll be getting some returns from races that are not that highly tested. So
yeah, that's exciting, though. It's exciting about both hearing about the high-speed internet and about the bond issues. And I'm rooting for both of those things. So hopefully we're going to see something. We're going to see some major changes here. So that would be really great. Thank you for being so patient and bringing me back on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chellie. No, that's important that we hear from people out in Western Cumberland County. That's what's really important, to hear from people all around.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's an exciting election, and I can't wait. I can't wait till November.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you for including me. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye now. We now have, I'm going to introduce Karen Hessel, who is also a vice chair of the Cumberland County Democrats. And she is going to present a video about Frances Perkins. I mentioned Frances Perkins earlier. And so I'm going to turn it over to Karen right now. Karen, take it away. It's all yours.
We're so excited. The 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote and celebrating the legacy of Frances Perkins is an important thing for us to do. She's a very important person, obviously, to those of us in Maine, with her Frances Perkins Center in Daramuscata and her history here. Her legacy informs us as we face these difficult times. She also faced difficult times, and she was dedicated to the common good and dedicated to creating a safety net for people who were hurting in our society in the 1920s and 30s and 40s. And she you know, as the first woman Secretary of Labor, she gave us all almost everything she wanted to give us, except for healthcare for all, which we're still working hard to achieve in her name. So the video gives you some notion of a touch of Frances Perkins. There's also a video that public television produced that's called Summoned, Frances Perkins and the General Welfare, and it's available for rental or purchase for a very modest cost on Amazon for those of you who want to see it. But her commitment to the common good and the general welfare is something that we all celebrate and care about, and her commitment to voter protection and for the right to vote was unsurpassed. And I was happy to hear Drew talk about not being able to vote in 1980. I had to wait till I was 21 to vote in 1968, and we worked very hard to lower the voting age to 18. And I just want to make that clear, because a lot of young people I talk about don't know that at once upon a time in the not too distant past, you had to be 21 to vote and not 18. So, we just owe so much to Frances Perkins. So I hope you'll enjoy seeing this little video clip to get a little inspiration that we all want to move forward, keep moving forward, and carry on her legacy.
In the fall of 1932, the grand democratic experiment was failing, as America was in free fall through the Great Depression, and there were more people leaving the country than arriving. Then, in November, the American people petitioned Franklin Delano Roosevelt to reorient the role of government by invoking the constitutional promise to promote the general welfare. His presidency would transform America, but he didn't do it alone. Only a dozen years after women gained the right to vote, Roosevelt nominated the first woman to serve in a presidential cabinet. Together, they would weave a social safety net that would bring about a profound change in the way that Americans live their lives.
Frances Perkins paved the way and made it easier for the rest of us.
She inherited part of a tradition of service. She was its caretaker for a little while, and she passed it on to another generation.
In the moment in time in which she was operating, she was just an unusual figure, unusually committed, unusually brave, alone in a world full of men.
There was a timelessness and a transcendence to the quality of her work, because it was not something she was ever going to complete herself, just a natural part of the fabric of American society right now.
There is no contribution that a cabinet member has made in the history of this country that has had the lasting kind of effect on all of us and the way we live than what Frances Perkins did.
Poverty is tough, misery is difficult, pain and suffering are hard, but nothing equals the loss of self-esteem in a person's life. Frances Perkins changed that.
And thank you very much, Karen. I want to remind everyone that this is a fundraiser, so please go to the donate button or go to the link that you can donate to the Cumberland County Democrats. Again, you want to note that in that video we saw the former Senator George Mitchell, who was also the other person who is named in the Democratic Party's fundraising dinner. We have the Perkins Mitchell dinner. So, also want to a little shout out to some of the people who have sponsored us in this fundraiser. As I mentioned earlier in the evening, we originally planned to doing a in-person fundraiser, and we did solicit donations. So I want to read the names of the people who generously donated to the Cumberland County Democrats for our fundraiser. And I'll start with get this up here. I'll start with Congresswoman Chellie Pingree. And then as a sponsor, also Steve and Rachel Hendrickson and Neil and Heather Jamieson. They are sponsors. And in the category of patrons, Senator Rebecca Millett and Kevin Kobel. And friends, we have Bill Birthisel, Karen Birthisel, Karen Hessel, Reverend Dr. Scott DeBlock, Heidi DeBlock MD, and myself, but that's not that important. We are now going to see from Ryan Kessler. This is a video. Ryan Kessler is working on the Voter Protection Project, which is very important, obviously, because we all know at this point there's a lot of work on in voter suppression. That is, the current administration is trying to suppress the vote. They're trying to oppose mail-in balloting. They're trying to cut, states have been cutting back on polling places. We're lucky here in Maine. Maine's voter turnout is very high because we have same-day voter registration. And I do want to give a compliment to the city clerk of Portland and the city for keeping 10 polling places open so people could get out and vote. So Portland really does care, and Maine does care about voter turnout. So now we're going to hear from Ryan Kessler, the Voter Protection Project.
Cumberland County Democrats. My name is Ryder Kessler, and I'm the Voter Protection Director here at the Maine Democratic Party. Thank you for all you're doing to make sure we take back the White House, the Senate, hold our House seats, hold our state legislative majorities, and otherwise elect Democrats up and down the ballot this fall. I'm here to tell you about some of the work we're doing on the voter protection team to making sure every eligible Maine person can register, vote, and have their vote counted this year, and how we need your help to do so. We know that Republicans are more brazen than ever about doing whatever it takes to win elections, including intimidating and suppressing voters. We know that their candidates and their ideas aren't enough to win, so instead of having voters choose them, they do everything they can to choose their voters. But we're here to stop it. We're here to make sure that the democratic process is inclusive and accessible, and we have started early this year to get those processes underway. Our voter protection team is doing a whole bunch of things, but primarily they fall into three buckets. We do voter education. Our website, voteinmaine.com, and our voter hotline are here to answer questions about how to participate, and we've already informed thousands of voters about what they need to do to register and vote successfully in Maine. Second is infrastructure preparedness. We work with clerks and the Secretary of State to make sure that Maine election administrators are ready for the very high turnout that we're going to see in November, and that they're adapting to the unprecedented times we're going through right now. Our third piece is election integrity. We monitor the administration of the election to make sure no one is unjustly turned away from registering or voting. We have poll observers out at the polls. We have volunteers making calls to voters whose ballots have been rejected to help them fix those rejections. We have volunteers at the counting of absentee ballots to make sure that no ballot is being thrown away that should be counted. All of this is to support the inclusive and safe and robust administration of elections here in Maine. There are many ways that folks like you can help as we scale and prepare for the November election, which we think will still be taking place with unprecedented rates of absentee voting, as well as unprecedented turnout. We need folks to volunteer for our program. We need you to answer hotline calls when they come in. We need you to call voters whose ballots have been rejected so they can cast a successful ballot. We need you at polling places and at the counting of absentee ballots to make sure that every vote counts. We know that Republicans are recruiting and training thousands of volunteers in states all across the country, including in Maine, to challenge and intimidate voters, and we need to be there to push back. So to volunteer for our program, you can go to voteinmaine.com/act, and that's where you can sign up to do any of the things I just mentioned, completely dependent on your availability and your comfort level of working from your home or out at a polling place or town office. We also need more folks to sign up to be poll workers. We saw that polling places are consolidating across the state. this month in July, and that more consolidation was going to happen, that we were able to prevent because we recruited hundreds of poll workers to robustly staffed polling places. Any consolidation is bad for democracy. It means longer lines. It means more potential for viral spread. It means more likelihood that someone will turn around and go home. So we want to make sure there is no consolidation at all in November. And to do that, we need as many poll workers as possible signed up. You can sign up to be a poll worker at voteinmaine.com/work. That's voteinmaine.com/work. And then we will connect you with the towns that need your help. All of these things are critical to making sure we have smooth and safe elections this year, because we know that if every Maine person registers and votes and has their vote counted, there's no way that we won't win every seat that's up for grabs, take back the White House, take back the Senate, hold the House, hold the state legislature, and make sure that we can implement progressive, just, and equal policies for all Maine people. Thank you so much for all that you do. And if you have any questions about voter protection in Maine, don't hesitate to reach out to votepro@mainedems.org. Thank you.
And thank you. That was Ryder Kessler, not Ryan. All right, Ryder Kessler. I have some results from our local race that I'd like to let you in on. This is State House District 37 in Portland. The candidates are Grayson Lookner and James Cloutier. They are vying for a seat that is vacant because Representative Dick Farnsworth is retiring as a result of term limits. Here are the partial returns so far. Grayson Lookner, who is 96 votes. James Cloutier, 85 votes. This does not include absentee ballots, of which over 1,000 were cast. And the results from the second place, Lookner 44 and Cloutier 48. And again, absentee ballot results won't be in until tomorrow. They won't be counted until tomorrow morning. So that's what it is. James Cloutier was he was a county commissioner and also was one time in the Portland City Council and a longtime Democrat. And Grayson Lookner is an activist who has spent a lot of time working on the Bernie Sanders campaign. And now we're going to hear from a video from the Reverend Scott DeBlock. So let us, without further ado, let us have video.
Hi, I'm Scott DeBlock, new member of the Cumberland County Democratic Committee and new residents of Maine, moving here last year from near Albany, New York with my wife Heidi, who is a critical care physician and working through Maine Medical Center up in Norway at Stevens Memorial. And I'm currently pastor at State Street Congregational Church in Portland. We are glad to be citizens of Maine now and to be part of such a good community that thinks about others and everyone around them to create a sense of community and moving forward. That is so desperately needed now in this election time. Former Vice President and future President Joe Biden has said often that this election is about the very soul of our nation, and I could not agree more. We are at a pivotal time in the history of the Democratic Republic in which we live. It is a time to return integrity, honesty, and openness to those in power. It is a time to speak truth to power and those who abuse it, and not to stand idly by, being afraid to say anything because of party affiliation. This is a crucial time in the life of our country. That is why I hope you join me in electing the Democrats that are on the ballot, both locally and nationally, that we can bring change and be the change that we want to see. In a time of systemic racism, in a time of a total mishandling of a pandemic, where we have put individuals ahead of community, it is time to recapture that flavor of who we really are as Americans. And I believe that the Democratic Party and those on the ballot up and down have the ability to make a change, to restore trust and honesty and integrity to our government. And that is why I'm glad to be with you this evening and to be glad to be a member of the Democratic Party in the state of Maine. Blessings to you. Enjoy the Zoom-A-Thon, and I hope to see you all again in person.
Thank you. That was the Reverend Scott DeBlock, also one of our sponsors for this Zoom-A-Thon. We're going to hear from some more people. We're going to see some more videos very soon. And the next up is Rebecca Millett, who is in her own race right now, and she will tell you all about it. So without further ado, let us hear from Rebecca Millett.
I'm Rebecca Millett. I represent Senate District 29, which is all of South Portland, Cape Elizabeth, and part of Scarborough. I grew up in the 70s during a time of civil unrest, anti-war protests, Watergate. And I think that time just baked into my bones an awareness of the importance of activism and what was happening in our political system. I have very strong memories of my mother working with a League of Women Voters here in Maine, fighting for equal rights. And I think all of that greatly influenced my involvement in even junior high school and high school in our local student government, and then on into college and post-college. I am thrilled to see our youth protesting and marching and fighting against climate change, for the end of gun violence, and for racial equity and justice. And what I really hope is that their energy continues to grow all the way through to this November. It's absolutely essential that they take this energy and vote like they've never voted before. Make sure that each other votes. So they send a loud and clear message that their generation, is taking back our democracy, our voting from big corporations, dark money, haters, Russia, you name it. So get out there and vote, everyone. This is a critical, critical time in the history of our country. And I look forward to seeing you at the polls.
Right. And thank you very much, Rebecca Millett. We have 2 more videos coming up from people who are active in the party, who are running for office. And then when we're done, we're going to hear from Matt Beck, who is the chair of the South Portland Democrats, and State Representative Ben Collins, who has no primary, but has an opponent in the fall. And he's going to update us with some of the important legislation that he has been working on. But now I'd like to hear a video. Jan Chapman is up next. So let's roll the video with Jan Chapman.
Hi, I'm Jan Chapman, and I live in Cape Elizabeth. 50 years ago, I was a college senior, and it was during the Vietnam War, when our country started bombing Cambodia and clearly expanding the war. Students all across the country went on strike and stopped going to class, and I was one of them. It was a thrilling time to be a student. There were all kinds of lectures going on, lectures about the economics of the war, the history of Southeast Asia, and why we were there. We marched in the streets, we went door to door, we registered people to vote. My male friends were very worried about the draft because their student deferments were going to end when we graduated. So it was a very intense time, and a time that was very formative for me and affected my politics for the rest of my life. It wasn't until 1972, 2 years later, that I was able to cast my first vote for President of the United States. And I cast my vote for George McGovern, who pledged to end the war in Vietnam. I'm proud to say that I have never missed voting ever since. I feel that it's my responsibility as a citizen to vote, and as Marian Wright Adelson says, democracy is not a spectator sport. So it's very important to vote, but that's only the first step. We really need to hold our elected officials accountable, pay attention to what they're doing, make sure that they're working for us. And if they're not working for us, then we vote them out. So that's my message, and I approve it. I approve of it.
And thank you. That was Jan Chapman. We're going to now hear from Kim Monahan from Cape Elizabeth. She is also a candidate for office. And so let's, without further delay, let's hear from Kim Monahan.
Hello, I'm Kim Monahan, running in the primary for House District 30 in Cape Elizabeth. So the question was, what does voting mean to me? Voting goes back to when I was young and my mom would write letters to Senator George Mitchell and also Congresswoman Olivia Snow, mostly about children's needs, their health, their safety, and their benefits. Another time I remember voting was when I was a sophomore at the University of Maine at Orono. I'm standing in line and I'm looking all around and looking at everyone, and all of a sudden I turn around and I hear this little girl talking to her mother, and I just thought to myself, what kind of future is this young girl going to have? And I immediately voted for Jimmy Carter, but I always was going to vote for him. Coming back to today, we are living in some pretty challenging times right now, and now more than ever, it is so important to have your voice heard, so it is so important to vote. And especially to all the younger voters out there, this is your time and your generation to have your voice heard and to take action and vote always. Thank you, and have a good primary election day.
And thank you, Kim. Now, we are going to hear from Matt Beck. Matt is the chair of the South Portland Democrats. He's also active in the Southern Maine Labor Council, and he's been working in television for years. And after that, we're also going to hear from Representative Ben Collins. So Matt, welcome to Zoom-A-Thon.
Thank you, Harlan. It's good to be here. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, well, thank you for coming. Matt, tell me, what got you interested in Democratic Party politics? I know you're not an office holder. You work on the behind the scenes in the committees, but what drew you into becoming active in the Democratic Party?
Well, I've actually been the chair of the South Portland Democratic Committee for pretty much for 12, 13 years now, with a couple of brief breaks. But it was actually my involvement in a labor dispute when I used to work at Channel 13 in Portland, and I was the chief steward of the union there, the IBEW local. And I was looking for support from the community. I talked to my friend Richard Rotkov, who was the chair of the South Portland Democrats at that time. He invited me to come to a meeting. I started attending meetings, and you know how it is. If you attend enough meetings, you wind up getting in a position where you can, do some good work. And I was encouraged to run for the chair spot, and I've been there, as I said, for quite a while.
Tell me a little bit about the work that you do on the Southern Maine Labor Council. I'm not sure how many people who are tuning in know that much about the Southern Maine Labor Council. They may have heard its name mentioned several times, but tell us a little bit about what the council is and what it does.
Sure. So a lot of folks are, at least, Democratic Party, I would hope many of you are familiar with the Maine AFL-CIO, which is a state labor federation. Well, the local labor councils, including the Southern Maine Labor Council here in Cumberland County, are sort of the local opportunity for people to get involved. There are labor councils throughout the state. There's Western Maine Labor Council, which is actually in the Lewiston-Auburn area, Eastern Maine Labor Council up in Brewer, Central Maine Labor Council in the Augusta area. So what we do is it's delegates, representatives from different unions get together once a month, discuss the issues that are important to us, to other union members, and to working folks, even if they're not in unions, working folks in our community. We come together, figure out how we can support one another, and have an opportunity to learn from each other.
And now I want to just shift over a little bit to the South Portland Democratic City Committee. What are some of the issues the City Committee in South Portland has been involved in the last year?
Well, obviously we've got a lot of interest in environmental issues here in South Portland. There's been tremendous concern, and I won't get too deep into the weeds on it, but the tank farms have been found to have emission levels in excess of what everybody thought they were. And our local representatives, Senator Rebecca Millett and Representative Ann Carney from Cape Elizabeth, both have done some great legislative work to try to make sure that the health and safety of people in South Portland is protected. I should also add that we've had a good amount of success getting progressive candidates to run for city council. Some of them have come from our committee. Almost all of them have spoken at our committee meetings, although city council is nonpartisan. We're really, very pleased with the work that those folks have been doing here in the city of South Portland.
That's terrific. Matt, thank you very much for zooming in.
Hey, do you want me to give you some unofficial totals while I'm here?
Have them? Absolutely.
Yes, these are hot off the press, actually, from Emily Scully, who's a city clerk. Most of the races in South Portland were not contested. I can tell you the race of interest to a lot of folks is the 29th State Senate District seat. That is a seat currently held by Senator Rebecca Millett, who is termed out. In the first place totals for ranked choice, Ann Carney, including, again, unofficial, but including all the precincts reporting as well as the absentee ballots. Ann Carney has 2,362. Sari Green has 1,996, and Eben Rose has 857. So that's certainly, all three candidates, great people, very strong candidates. Going to be a tough general election campaign. Republicans have put up a formidable challenger. So we look forward to supporting whoever is the ultimate victor. We still need to see the votes from Cape Elizabeth and from a small piece of Scarborough for that seat. And if anybody's curious, ranked choice U.S. Senator from South Portland, Sarah Gideon, 3,791. Betsy Sweet, 1,165, and Bree Kidman, 330. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the results from, of course, Cape Elizabeth and Scarborough for that 29th State Senate District.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that report. All right.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. And we're going to hear from State Representative Ben Collins next, but I need to explain something to everybody out there. The phone interruption, I apologize for, but it was my wife wanting to know how she could donate. So there. Now I want to introduce Senator Ben Collins. Excuse me, Representative Ben Collins. Gave you a promotion there by accident.
Thank you.
Ben represents part of East Deering and part of Deering Center from Portland. He was also one of the organizers of the Bernie Sanders campaign. Ben, you've been sponsoring some legislation that has dealt with Native American issues in the state. Would you tell us a little bit about the work you've been doing in the legislation you've sponsored and have passed?
Yes, thank you for asking, Harlan. And can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, good. Okay. I'm not very tech savvy, so one of my first time on this Zoom thing. So I introduced several pieces of legislation this past, or I guess pending 129th session. We may be going back in August. So 2 pieces of legislation were signed into law last year on the requests from the Penobscot Nation's ambassador, specifically Mully and Dana. One was to change Columbus Day, rename it Indigenous Peoples Day, and they just celebrated their first Indigenous Peoples Day recently, and we will be doing it again in a second anniversary in October. The other piece of legislation was, something you're going to hear a lot more about all over the country, where professional football teams and other sports teams are getting rid of offensive mascots. I had a bill sponsored again on the request of the Penobscot Nation through their ambassador Mully and Dana to remove all offensive mascots from public schools in Maine. This was at the primary and secondary level. The Education Committee put on an amendment to make sure it also would cover any college or university. And so that bill was signed into law. So those were 2 of the first bills I sponsored, working with the Native American communities here in Maine, the 4 federally recognized tribes, that became law. There are several issues which I think are equally, and I would say even much more important, that are pending and haven't come to a vote yet, but those are bills that are sponsored. Most of them got rolled into a comprehensive study committee to completely renegotiate the terms between the state of Maine and the 4 federally recognized tribes about how the state perceives what their sovereignty is. The tribes disagree. The states had a different view. But as we're seeing now with, state governments and activists and people in states all around the country really coming to terms with our past, our history, looking at systemic racism, and definitely that has impacted the tribes here. And so we hope that besides the first good steps of some of those bills passed, we hope the governor and the attorney general and the legislators and business and community leaders will continue to work with the tribes. And we hope that soon the state will pass laws that will basically respect tribal sovereignty much more and allow tribes to have much more control over the destiny of their everyday life with health, economics, and so forth.
Good. Any other legislation that you've been sponsoring in addition to your work with the Native American community in the state?
I think those are pretty much the key ones. I have one for gaming, basically to have parity, where what the out-of-state corporations can have casinos in Oxford County and in Bangor, but they keep telling the tribes that have been here for 12, 14,000 years, they can't, as a local entity, have that business, which ironically in the late 80s, in a bipartisan vote, the Congress gave the rights for tribes virtually everywhere in the country to have gaming. And it was supposed to go to them first, but it's the opposite in Maine. But that's kind of been put on hold again. All the major legislations, economic, sovereignty, health with the tribes, have been rolled into this big committee and this study. And that's done. And there's been recommendations made, but we haven't voted on those yet formally. So everything's on hold as this committee, which basically it's all gone to the Judiciary Committee, and we're waiting on. We hope we can go back in August and work on some pressing issues. But while we're there, we'd like to continue to do the work on the tribal relations and other issues of systemic racism, which really haven't received the attention they should have. But now, in light of recent events, we're really some people are emboldened to be a little bit more proactive. So I hope one of the things we can do is help strengthen tribal sovereignty. So.
Thank you very much, Ben. And although I inadvertently promoted you to a senator, maybe in the future we will have a Senator Ben Collins. All right.
I don't know. We'll see. Can I say something real quick, Harlan, about
Absolutely.
Okay. So besides the legislation I've worked on with the tribes, I have some pending legislation. And again, I hope we go back in August and take it up. One of them is reinstating the level of the estate tax to the pre-Paul LePage era, which would have a more equitable tax policy in our state and would give us tens of millions of dollars, which we desperately need at this time. If you recall, when Franklin Roosevelt was president, one of the things he did to help our economy with all the crazy crises at the time was start to have more progressive taxation on the wealthiest people in this country. And it's no different today. We need some more fair tax policy. And so I'm hoping that the legislature and the Senate will take up my bill, which is stuck right now in committee, and pass it. And I hope the governor signs it. And while we struggle in this pandemic, that is one way to get us tens of millions of dollars. And was the estate tax, by the way, was really enhanced by a Republican president, Teddy Roosevelt, probably about 100 years ago. So I sure to heck hope that if a Republican president about 100 years ago could really boost an estate tax that was really fair and progressive, I hope we can do a very minor adjustment in the state of Maine. So that's one thing I hope people, including Democrats in Cumberland County, could get behind.
Great.
Thank you.
And thank you, Ben. Before I introduce our next guest, a reminder that this is our big fundraiser of the year. So if you have been watching, please go to the donate button, hit the donate button, go to our link, contribute to the Cumberland County Democratic Committee, and help us build a campaign for this fall. And now I'd like to introduce Megan Casey from Yarmouth. Megan, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me tonight. I am the co-chair of the Yarmouth Democrats. My co-chair is Jeff Q, who I think is listening. And I'm also a town councilor here in Yarmouth. So we don't have any results yet from Yarmouth. My phone, I'm waiting. I have a friend up at the high school where the county votes, but so we'll see, but maybe we will. But we have been focused a lot here in Yarmouth this election on the local races. We have 3 seats up on our 7-member town council, and in fact we have 3 seats up right now, and we have 1 seat that will be up in a special election probably in November because somebody just resigned. So our town council's in a big state of flux right now. So we thought of it as a good time to maybe make a difference. So we also had 2 seats up on our 7-member school committee. So we worked hard as Democrats. They are nonpartisan seats, all of them. But the campaign doesn't have to be nonpartisan. And we decided that after years, our town council has been, it's great. It's a wonderful organization, and everybody who work with it's very earnest, hardworking people. But the council has been tilted to the right for years. And it's particularly surprising in Yarmouth because our voting is 60% or so Democratic most of the time. You know, when we're talking about how Yarmouth goes in national or statewide elections. So the council didn't exactly reflect the town, which sometimes happens, but it has been going on for a while. So we worked hard at it, and we'll see how it comes out, hopefully in a little bit here. but that's been our focus on our council and our school committee elections. So
Great. That's great report.
I don't know what else, what you guys, I mean, the issues, you want to hear the issues?
I'd love to hear the issues.
Yeah. So the council, I mean, well, recently, of course, a lot of what we've been dealing with has been COVID related, but particularly with involving the schools. But our issues are I think that a lot of towns in this area probably face, which is how to embrace. We're a growing town, and we recognize, and as are I know a number of the towns in the greater Portland area, and we recognize that is a blessing. That many towns in Maine do not have that, are not growing. Our schools are growing, our towns, which is great, and we work hard to keep a focus on the positive of that, because there's a negative, which we attract a lot of young families who have children, which is not actually a negative in my book as a teacher, but it can be for taxes. And so we have to really try to work hard to balance the tax and issue with the needs of a growing town, because we also have a lot of long-term Yarmouth residents who've been here for many, many years, and their housing, the house they live in has increased in value a great deal, but they have struggled to afford their property taxes. So we have created a program called the Stay program, which helps seniors. It's only for seniors, people over 65, to afford their property taxes if they're in a situation that's possibly causing them to have to leave town, which is really, it's been a great program. It's worked. It was started by a counselor previous to myself, another Democratic counselor, and it really has worked well to, actually he did it in conjunction with it was a bipartisan act. But there's been a number of people who've been able to stay in town with that. So that's good. And we're always working on our economic development. And Yarmouth is a little bit unique in that for many, many, many years, most of our taxes were paid by the Wyman Station CMP plant that you've probably all seen if you've been out sailing or cruising on Casco Bay at all, or even just standing on the shore, you see the smokestack. But it's really being phased out. It's not used very much by CMP or by the company that owns it any longer. So the tax base has really shifted from that commercial tax base to a residential tax base. And so we've also been working at about the last, I'd say 6 years with the Economic Development Advisory Board to grow our commercial base in a substantial way to take some of the onus of the taxes off of homeowners. So, because that can be an issue. So those, I mean, they're just very small, town tax issues, but those are what we'd spend a lot of our time talking about.
Well, they say all politics is local, right?
It is.
I mean, it's important. It starts at the town, and if you can't pay attention to the local issues of your town, what's the point of electing anyone to a higher office? So it's a good report. I really appreciate you chatting.
I find it very interesting. It's kind of where the rubber hits the road. I mean, we all have our values, and it seems very easy or somewhat easy for us on a national level or even a state level to focus on the person or the group that we think represents our values. And we never have to know the nitty gritty of governing on that level. But at the town level, you know it. You have to really just stick to your values, to value education and other social services that we have in town means to pay for them, and you have to work that out at a local level, and you have to stick to it. And sometimes there can be nastiness, and you can be branded as a someone who doesn't, if you support schools, do you care about the elderly? And if or the reverse, if you're worried about taxes, do you not care about children in schools? And so it's a lot harder to be firmly partisan on a local level, which is like why our races are nonpartisan here in Maine. But it's also to me, it's interesting. Anyway.
Well, thank you very much, Megan. Thank you. We're going to hear from Mike Williams next, Cumberland. And I just want to mention here, I've got a report that the Bangor Daily News has called the U.S. Senate Democratic primary for Sarah Gideon, but that's only with 12% of the vote. So we should wait. And now I'd like to introduce Mike Williams, chair of the Cumberland Town Democratic Committee. Mike, take it away.
Thanks, Harlan. I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, so I'm Mike. I'm the chair of the Cumberland Municipal Democratic Committee, the CMDC. I really appreciate the Cumberland County Dems putting on the Zoom-A-Thon today. This is fantastic. I got to see a bunch early on, and then I had to run over. I went over to our Greeley gym to get our results, and so I can tick through that. But I want to give a couple points of good news. Well, one, we had a number of elections in the town of Cumberland today, municipal elections for our town council, school board, which FYI, I ran for school board and I won, so that was fun.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And our budget, which passed, which is great, really a good budget put together this year. But I wanted to give just some interesting numbers and just show the impact and effect of our organizing across Cumberland County, and also maybe a little bit of the Trump effect too. Cumberland obviously being a suburban town. So in 2014, our registration went like this: 36% Republican, 31% Democrat, 30% unenrolled. 36% Republican, 31% Democrat, 30 unenrolled. Today, it's 42% Democrat, 30% Republican, and 28% unenrolled. It's a sea change in registration. And today's turnout was 46.5%. It was the highest turnout we've had in a primary, or among the highest turnout, and this is in a pandemic. And they're nearly 40% of the whole 40 of the 46%, 46.5% was from absentee ballots. And in addition to that, 2/3 of the folks who voted today in Cumberland were Democrats. So over 1,800 Democrats to only 850 Republicans. We are swamping them in the town of Cumberland, which is fantastic because we have a couple great, we have a great state representative in Steve Moriarty. He ran unopposed in his primary, but he's going to be running against Mike Timmons, the former state representative, who Republican, served for a term. We're not going to take it lightly, but again, we're really feel like we're making a big shift in registration. And Kathy Breen also. And again, Kathy, when she won in 2014 or 16, the first time, I think 14. She only won by 25 votes, but we're going to make sure that she continues to win by bigger and bigger numbers. So yeah, and so I have also, I appreciate you listed off. I saw the announcement from BDN about the U.S. Senate race in Cumberland. It went like this: 1,388 votes for Sarah Gideon, 281 for Betsy Sweet, and 51 for Bree Kidman. So significant vote for Sarah Gideon in the town of Cumberland. But yeah, that's our numbers. That's our good news, which I love being able to share good news, but we've been putting in a lot of time and organizing folks in town. It really does feel like there's a pretty significant sea change here. And yeah, that's what I got for you, Harlan.
Oh, I think that's great. Mike, before you go, I'd like to find out why you got involved in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been involved in progressive causes through work. I work on issues related to climate change and workers' rights for my whole career. And, when I moved to Cumberland a little over 6 years ago, I wanted to get involved in local issues and local efforts. And specifically, I wanted to get involved in the Democratic Party and see if I can build that up. It didn't, Tom Foley is the previous chair, and he did a phenomenal job really laying the groundwork, but I wanted to just see how I could help because I care about progressive causes. I care about the Democratic Party. I think, we have a great town and we should have great people who represent it. And so that's pretty much it. I just started showing up to a few meetings, started raising my hand and saying, sure, I'll help out. Sure, I'll pitch in. And I got roped in and I couldn't be happier.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Mike, for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you all. In fact, I have to just mention again that before I go, we're going to see a few more videos, but before I go, all right, remember that if you haven't donated, please go to the donate button, go to our link, send a check if you want, follow us on Facebook. The Cumberland County Democratic Committee has a Facebook page. Follow us on Facebook, right? We have a website. We are going to be having at least 2 meetings before the year is out. We have quarterly meetings. We will probably have a meeting in September. No date has been set yet. It'll probably be a virtual meeting. And then we're going to have a meeting in December because we have to elect new officers. So the people that run for positions in office holders in party organizations, their terms are up every time the election is held. So it's every 2 years, right? This is not like one does not become a chair for life. And I also, again, I want to encourage anybody who is watching to really get involved with the committee and really get involved with our campaign and really be willing to pitch in and do the work necessary to not only defeat Donald Trump, but also to retire Senator Susan Collins, or as the bumper sticker has been just proudly displayed, which reads, "Bye-bye, Susan. Let's make that a reality." We now are going to I'm going to hear one more time. If you've missed it, we really like to hear a message that's been pre-recorded from our governor, Janet Mills. And so let us run that video. Janet Mills.
Hello, Cumberland County Democrats. It's Janet Mills. I'm here to encourage you to get out the vote today. Today, people across Maine exercise that most fundamental of all of our rights, the right to vote. We do so in an unprecedented time in the middle of a global pandemic. Every election is important, but this one is no different, as President Lincoln once said, quote, "Elections belong to the people. It's their decision. If they decide to turn their backs on the fire and burn their behinds, they'll just have to sit on their blisters." That was a quote. It may seem like the world is on fire right now, but don't turn your back. We need you now more than ever. We're deciding today whether or not we want a state, and this year we're deciding whether we want a nation that believes in facts, not fear. Will defend the health and safety of all of its people, no matter their race, ethnicity, religion, gender, age, or orientation, that believes every person should have access to affordable health care, a quality education, a good paying job, and the ability to provide for their family, and the same chance to succeed, no matter what their zip code. Together, we have the power to create a state and a nation that believe in equality and justice for all. That power remains in our hands, even during a pandemic. I learned that when I first went to vote in the late 60s, the height of the Vietnam War, peace protests, racial violence, people fighting for the right to vote then, back then, more than ever. And I learned then how important it is to vote every election, a lesson I've never forgotten. Polling places are open today for those who choose to vote in person, but be sure to plan a little extra time because of new procedures, social distancing. There'll be some lines, sanitation measures. Please be careful of your friends and neighbors, others going to the polls. If you can, you should strongly still consider absentee voting, even today, right up till 8 p.m. Because of an executive order that I signed, you can vote absentee today. No excuse, no reason given, as long as you get your ballot to the polls by 8 p.m. Today's the day. Let's seize our future. Stay safe and vote.
And thank you. That was a video of that Governor Mills kindly recorded for us prior to our event. And I think they're very lucky to have her as governor. She's certainly done a very good job in cleaning up the mess from the previous governor, who I will not name. And now, before we close out, I want to turn over the rest of the Zoom-A-Thon to our chair, Rachel Hendrickson in Scarborough. Rachel, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Host. Thank you for the wonderful work that you did. I thank all of you out there that have tuned in. We will be taking the videos that folks have made and be running them occasionally on our Facebook page. So if you missed one, You can join us on Facebook. The 2020 campaign, the general election campaign, starts right now. Sarah Gideon will be speaking at 10 o'clock. She has been declared the winner. In the second CD, the Republicans are going to have to engage in that thing that they love so much, ranked choice voting. Right now, Crofts is ahead, and so they have to go, nobody's got a plurality, I guess. Nobody's got a majority, so they're going to have to go to ranked choice. That could change, but that's what we're looking at right now. I've said it before many times, I'll say it again. The path to victory in 2020 in Maine runs through Cumberland County. There are over 110,000 Democrats in Cumberland County. We are almost 28% of the Democrats in the whole state of Maine. If we get the turnout we need, if we get the turnout that we need to work for, then we say goodbye to Susan Collins. If we help in the second CD, then we keep Jared Golden. And in the first CD, we keep Chellie Pingree. And we are looking to make sure that President 45 does not get any electoral votes from Maine. So we have our work cut out for us. In the primary, after the primary, and after folks started looking around at how they wanted to get involved, what we found out is that 12,000 voters in Cumberland County changed from unenrolled to Democrat. There are 12,000 voters out there who are new Democrats. We need to engage them. We need to bring them in to the party. We need to find our young folks who might say, I can't do anything. I'm only one person. I'm new. We need to bring them into activism. We need to get to our seniors and make sure that they feel comfortable voting. We need to just pull out all stops to move us towards victory in November in 2020. And the path to that victory starts with a change in the Senate in Cumberland County with our 110,000 Democrats, and to make sure that we deliver all of our electoral votes to the person that we hope is going to be President Biden. Thank you all for the work that you have done. Thank you for the work that I know that you're going to be doing. And on to victory in 2020. Thank you all, and good night.